Hey, have you ever walked into a crowded coffee shop in downtown New York just to get a latte and a stranger suddenly started telling you about their divorce? Or have you ever sat in a team meeting at the office saying nothing, and suddenly the room fell silent as if everyone was confronting something profound they were afraid to admit? If these moments sound familiar, then you, my friend, may have a magical power that few people realize. It has nothing to do with what you say or do. It has to do with who you are, the energy you radiate, the way you make others see themselves, whether they want to or not. Today, we're going to explore a mysterious phenomenon energy mirrors. These people, without even trying, reflect the souls of others, stir emotions, illuminate truths, and sometimes make people run away from themselves. Drawing on the insights of psychologist Carl Jung, I'll walk you through 5 signs that you might be an energy mirror. And trust me, if you've ever felt like you're influencing others in ways you can't explain, you'll want to watch this video until the end. There will be real-life stories from ordinary people across the U.S., from San Francisco to Chicago, and a final lesson that will change the way you see your own quiet power. Grab a cup of coffee, or matcha green tea if you prefer, and let's get started. Imagine you're in a park in Seattle, walking along tree-lined paths on a cool fall afternoon. You're not trying to attract attention, you're simply enjoying the fresh air, your headphones playing your favorite song, maybe an acoustic Taylor Swift. But then a jogger you've never met stops, takes off his headphones and starts talking about how he lost his job at a tech company. You stand there listening without judgment, and he thanks you, saying he feels lighter, as if you've opened an emotional door he didn't know was closed. You ask yourself, what did I do? This is the first sign of an energy mirror. Your presence changes others without you doing anything in particular. Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, once said that what irritates us in others can lead us to understanding ourselves. You, with your pure energy, become a mirror of other people's emotions, both light and dark. If someone is harboring anxiety, it flares up when they're near you. If they bury sadness, it starts to rise just because you're there. Not because you mean it, but because your energy is like a spotlight illuminating the dark corners they try to avoid. I remember a story about Emily, a barista at a Starbucks in Portland. Emily was not the type to talk. She just did her job, smiled at customers, and carefully wrote down names on coffee cups. But strangely, customers often opened up to her. One time, a middle-aged man named Tom, who usually just ordered an Americano and left, suddenly sat down at the counter and talked about how he felt lost after his children left home for college. Emily just nodded and listened, but Tom said he felt like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. She later realized this happened all the time, from a single mother sharing about financial stress to a college student sharing about her fear of failure. Emily did nothing but be herself, but her presence seemed to amplify what others were carrying inside. Have you ever had a similar experience? Maybe you're at a dinner party in Austin, and a friend of a friend suddenly tells you about the dream they gave up for a steady office job. You don't ask, but they just say it as if your presence opens up a safe space for the truth. Now, this isn't always pleasant. As an energy mirror, you don't just reflect positive emotions like joy or hope. You also reflect shadows, the pain, anger, or emptiness that others don't want to face. I once met Ryan, a yoga teacher in Los Angeles. Ryan told me that in his classes, students often experience strong emotions. One woman, Sarah, started crying in a simple pose, not because of physical pain, but because she suddenly remembered her dead father, whom she had never truly mourned. Another man, Mike, became irritable, left class early, only to return the next week and apologize, saying that Ryan's presence brought up anger he had buried from a divorce. Ryan didn't mean anything by it. He was just teaching the class as usual. But his energy, the authenticity of his presence, triggered those reactions. I think this happens because the energy mirror operates at a frequency that doesn't tolerate insincerity. You like a perfect chord, and when you appear, everything that is not in harmony vibrates, either finding a way to harmonize or falling apart. The second sign is that you often become the target of emotions that do not belong to you. Have you ever been angry at someone for no reason or praised excessively when you did nothing special? This is called projection, and as an energetic mirror, you are a perfect blank canvas for others to paint their emotions on. Jung explained that when we do not acknowledge something within ourselves, like an insecurity or a desire, we project it outward, often onto those closest or most accessible. For you, this happens not just to friends and family, but to strangers as well. Think about the time you were in line at Target in Minneapolis and the person behind you criticized you for walking too slowly, even though you were just pushing a cart. Or when you're at a bar in Nashville and a new friend insists that you're the most inspiring person they've ever met, even though you've only talked about country music for a few minutes. Let me tell you about Jessica, a nurse at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore. Jessica makes a habit of walking in a park near her home every weekend just to unwind after long shifts. One day, a woman named Linda, sitting on a bench, suddenly calls her over and starts talking about her struggles with depression. Jessica, who isn't used to talking to strangers, just listens, but Linda says she feels seen for the first time in years. The next week, Jessica has the opposite situation. A co-worker, Mark, suddenly criticizes her in the break room, saying that she doesn't care about the team, even though she's always been supportive. Jessica is confused, wondering what she did wrong. But then she realizes both Linda and Mark are projecting. Linda saw in Jessica the empathy she craved, and Mark projected his own frustration onto her. As a mirror of energy, Jessica did not create these emotions, she merely reflected them. This, I think, is one of the most difficult parts of carrying this energy. You may feel like you are carrying other people's emotions, but the truth is that you are only helping them see themselves. The trick is to learn to reflect without absorbing, the way a mirror lets light pass through without holding it back. Now, the third sign. Your presence makes others feel vulnerable even if you say nothing. Have you ever noticed that conversations with you often go surprisingly deep? Maybe you're at a backyard barbecue in Atlanta planning to talk about the weather or baseball, and then a friend starts sharing about her fear of losing her job, or a neighbor talks about her dream of opening a bakery that she never dared to pursue. Your presence is like a safe space where people feel they can take off their masks. Jung once said that the soul finds a place where it can be seen without judgment, and you, unwittingly or not, have become that place. I met Anna, a freelance graphic designer in Brooklyn. Anna is not the type to talk much. She likes to keep things light, usually talking about art or film. But at an art show in Manhattan, a colleague named Brian suddenly opened up to her about how he felt trapped in a toxic relationship. Anna listened, nodding, but Brian later said that he had never shared this with anyone, and it felt like she had given him permission to be honest. Anna was surprised because she had done nothing but stand there. But that's the power of an energy mirror. You don't have to try to create openness. Your energy, the authenticity of how you show up naturally, invites truth to surface. I think this is beautiful but also challenging. You may feel like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, especially when people are constantly pouring out their feelings to you. Anna learned to set boundaries by taking time alone after social events, like taking a walk along the Hudson River, to release her energy. If you feel this way, remember that you don't have to fix everything for everyone, you just need to be yourself. The fourth sign is that people come to you when they need clarity, but often leave when the truth you reflect is too hard to face. Imagine you're at a diner in Denver enjoying a plate of burgers. An old friend, Lisa, texts to meet, saying she's struggling with a big decision at work. You meet her, listen, and do nothing but ask a few simple questions. But Lisa suddenly becomes thoughtful, saying that you helped her see what she really wanted. But it was scary. A week later, she stops responding to your messages, and you wonder if you said something wrong. This is a common pattern with energy mirrors. People come to you in times of crisis, but when your mirror shows them when they are not ready for a truth, they retreat. Let me tell you about David, a career coach in Chicago. David has a gift for helping clients see their purpose clearly. One client, Rachel, came to him when she was considering leaving her job at a law firm to pursue her passion for writing. During the session, David listened and asked a few questions, but Rachel said he helped her realize that she was living for her family's expectations, not her own. She thanked him, but then canceled the next sessions and never came back. David felt hurt, thinking he had failed. But then he realized Rachel didn't leave because he was wrong. She left because his mirror was too clear, and she wasn't ready to walk through the door he opened. I think this is an important lesson for energy mirrors. You can't control how other people react to the truth. Your job is to reflect, not hold them back. David learned to let go by journaling after each session, recording his feelings so he wouldn't carry the client's energy. Finally, the fifth sign: your presence can harmonize or stir the energy of a space without you even meaning to. Have you ever walked into a party in Miami where everyone was laughing and talking loudly, but as soon as you arrived, the atmosphere changed? Maybe everyone became quiet, or an argument erupted out of nowhere. It wasn't because of anything you did, but because your energy was like a lever causing what was repressed to rise to the surface. Jung talked about the collective unconscious, a network that connects us all. And you, as an energy mirror, seem to tap into that network, stirring up what was dormant. I once knew Lauren, a social worker in San Diego. Lauren worked at a community center where she organized support groups for teens. Every time she walked into a room, the atmosphere changed. One time, a group was arguing about an unintentional prank, and when Lauren arrived, the tension melted away. People started sharing how they were really feeling. Another time, a seemingly normal meeting became emotional when a teenager suddenly told her about being bullied. Lauren didn't say much. She was just there, present. She told me that she thought she was accidentally causing trouble, but then realized that her presence only revealed what was already there. I thought that was powerful. You don't have to be loud or leading to make a difference. Just being yourself can make a room look at itself. But wait, that's not the end of the story. Think about the time you were at a farmer's market in Boston picking out apples and listening to an acoustic band play. A salesman, John, starts talking to you, and before you know it, he's telling you about his dream of starting his own farm, but his fear of failure. You just smile and nod, but John says that talking to you makes him feel like he can try. That's the power of the energy mirror. You trigger change without even trying, but it can also leave you feeling alone. When people leave after facing their truth, you may wonder if you did something wrong. I once spoke to Michael, a bartender in New Orleans. Michael worked at a bar in the French Quarter where he often listened to customers vent. One night, a woman named Claire told him how she wanted to leave the city to start over, but was afraid of losing her friends. Michael just listened, but Claire came back a few weeks later saying that he had helped her make the decision to move. However, she never returned to the bar, and Michael felt empty. He learned to accept that his role was to reflect, not hold people back. And then there were moments when this power felt like a burden. I remember Sophie, a journalist in Washington, D.C., who was often approached by colleagues for advice. One day, an editor named Greg shared with her how he felt trapped in his job despite his success. Sophie asked a few questions, but Greg said she helped him see that he was living for his reputation, not his passion. But then, Greg became distant, even avoiding her in the office. Sophie wondered if she was being too direct, but then she realized she was just a mirror, and Greg wasn't ready to face his own reflection. Sophie began practicing meditation to keep her energy balanced, imagining a protective layer of light around her before each workday. This helped her reflect without getting caught up in other people's emotions. Think about another time maybe you were hiking in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. You stopped to admire the view, and a fellow hiker, Kate, started talking about how she felt lost after graduating from college. You didn't offer advice, just listened, but Kate said you helped her feel understood. A month later, she emailed to thank you, saying that, she found a job that matched her passion. Moments like these remind you that your role, however quiet, has great power, but it also comes with responsibility. You have to learn to stand in your own energy, not letting other people's emotions sway you. I met Chris, a musician in Austin who plays guitar at local bars. Chris realized that audiences often felt emotional when he performed, not just because of the music, but because of his presence. One time, an audience member named Amy approached him after a show crying and saying that his song reminded her of her mother who had passed away. Chris just hugged her, but he felt exhausted afterward. He learned to relax by walking by Lady Bird Lake after each show, letting the audience's energy flow. And the story goes, imagine you are at an outdoor concert in Central Park, New York. You're standing in the crowd enjoying the music when a stranger, Tom, starts talking. Before you know it, he's talking about how he feels trapped in a Wall Street job, even though he once dreamed of being an artist. You just nod, but Tom says that talking to you makes him want to pick up a paintbrush again. You leave the concert wondering what just happened. That's the power of energy. Mirrors, you don't have to do much, but your presence opens doors that others don't dare touch. But it can also make you feel like you're carrying the world. I once spoke to Natalie, an elementary school teacher in Orlando. Natalie noticed that her students often shared little secrets with her, like being afraid of the dark or worried about their parents fighting. She just listened, but parents began to comment that their children became more open after being in Natalie's class. She learned to protect her energy by painting after school, using color to release the emotions she unintentionally picked up from her students. And then there are times when you feel this power as a gift. I remember Ethan, a sales clerk at a bookstore in Seattle. Ethan loved his job chatting with customers about their favorite books. One day, a customer named Olivia came in looking for a book about overcoming loss. Ethan suggested a few, but the conversation turned to Olivia losing her best friend in an accident. Ethan just listened, but Olivia came back the next week saying she had started journaling to process her grief, thanks to the safety of talking to him. Ethan realized that his presence was more than just selling books. It helped people face themselves. He started taking time to jog along the river every morning to keep his energy fresh, ready for unexpected conversations. The story of the energy mirror never really ends, because every day you live, you continue to reflect. Think about the time you were at a breakfast place in Kansas City enjoying a plate of pancakes. A waitress, Mia, started chatting, and before you knew it, she was talking about her dream of becoming a singer, but was afraid of rejection. You just smiled, told her she should try, and Mia then sent you a message on Instagram saying she signed up for an open mic. Moments like this remind you that you don't have to be the star to make a difference. You just have to be yourself, and your energy will do the rest. But it's important to learn to love this role with all its light and shadow. You're not here to make people comfortable, but to help them see the truth. And when you do that with love and sincerity, you don't just change them, you change yourself. It's not over yet. Imagine you're at a book fair in Los Angeles browsing the booths. An indie author, Ben, starts chatting with you, and soon he's sharing how he's afraid his new book won't be well received. You just listen, but Ben says that talking to you has made him feel more confident about publishing. You leave the fair wondering if you have a secret superpower. And maybe you're right. As an energy mirror, you have the ability to touch people's souls, not with your words, but with your presence. But this can also make you feel like you're living for others. I once met Lily, a therapist in Miami. Lily found that her clients often had big breakthroughs in therapy sessions, not because of her techniques, but because she created a space where they felt safe, to be honest. One client, James, said that just sitting with Lily helped him face his fear of abandonment. But Lily had to learn not to take her clients' stories home by meditating by the sea every night. And then there were moments when the role felt magical. I remember Olivia, a college student in Boston. Olivia joined a book club at school, and she realized that the members often shared stories, personal stories, when she leads a discussion. One time, a classmate, Emma, talked about her struggles with an eating disorder and said that Olivia's listening made her feel brave enough to seek help. Olivia wasn't trying to do anything special, she was just present. She started journaling to process the emotions she was inadvertently picking up from others to help her stay balanced. Think about another time. Maybe you were at a conference in San Francisco learning about personal development. A fellow participant, Alex, sat next to you, and during a break he started talking about how he felt trapped in an engineering job he didn't love. You just nodded, but Alex then sent you an email saying that he had signed up for a creative programming course because you had inspired him. You wondered, what have I done? But that was the point. As an energy mirror, you don't have to do much. Your presence is enough to trigger change. And as you learn to embrace this role with all its joys and challenges, you'll find that you're more than just a mirror. You're part of something bigger, a network that connects us all where truth finds light. And then, just as you're starting to think you understand the power of an energy mirror, something happens like a cosmic jolt that makes you wonder if you're really ready for this role. Imagine you're at a rock concert at Red Rocks Amphitheater in Colorado, the stage lights flashing, the crowd roaring to every guitar beat. You're standing there, swaying to the music, when a girl named Hannah with dyed blue hair and a band T-shirt bumps into you while dancing. She apologizes, laughing, but then her eyes lock with yours, and her smile fades. Suddenly she grabs your hand and pulls you away from the crowd to a quiet corner near the water cooler. I don't know why she says, her voice shaking, but I feel like I have to tell someone. I just found out my mom has cancer and I've been pretending like everything's fine. You stand there stunned, not knowing what to say, just nodding and listening. Hannah cries, hugs you, and says she feels like a weight has been lifted off her chest. You leave the concert reeling, wondering why moments like this keep finding you. But this isn't the twist. A week later, you get a message on Instagram from Hannah. She says that after talking to you, she's decided to move back home to Denver to be with her mom, and she's hosting a fundraiser for cancer research. She invites you to attend, saying that your presence changed everything. Will you go, or are you afraid that your energy will bring you more intense emotions that you're not ready to face? This is what the energy mirror has to deal with, moments that not only touch other people's lives but change their trajectory. And sometimes it pushes you into situations where you can't back down. I remember another time with Emily, the Portland barista I mentioned. One busy morning when the line stretched out to the door of Starbucks, a regular named Daniel walked in. Daniel always ordered a large latte, was quiet, and usually left right away. But this day he stopped and looked at Emily with a strange look in his eyes, as if he were struggling with something. "I need to talk to someone," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the coffee grinder. Emily, busy as she was, felt a strange energy as if she couldn't turn away. She called a co-worker to cover her shift and led Daniel to the corner of the shop. He revealed that he was a veteran recently returned from Afghanistan and struggling with PTSD. He had never told anyone, not even his family, for fear of judgment. But with Emily, he felt safe. She just listened, but Daniel said that for the first time he felt like he could seek help. You think the story ends there? No. Daniel started coming back to the cafe every week, not just for coffee, but to update Emily on his therapy journey. But then one day, he showed up with a different look in his eyes, angry. He blamed Emily, saying that she had opened Pandora's box for him, and now he couldn't handle the memories that were surfacing. Emily panicked, wondering if she had accidentally hurt him. But here's the twist. The next week, Daniel returned apologizing and with a thank you note. He says that Emily's presence, though it brought him face to face with his pain, saved him from giving up on himself. You see, as a mirror of energy, you don't just reflect. You can inadvertently be the one to change someone's life, even if it scares you. But wait, it gets more dramatic. Think of Jessica, the nurse in Baltimore. One night, as her shift at Johns Hopkins Hospital stretched into the middle of the night, Jessica was checking records when a patient, Margaret, an elderly woman who had just had surgery, heart surgery, holding her hand. Margaret, usually so quiet, suddenly whispered, "Do you know why I survived the surgery? Because of you. You remind me of my daughter, whom I haven't spoken to in 10 years. Jessica was stunned, but she sat down and listened. Margaret told of an argument that had caused her and her daughter Claire to lose contact. It was only because of Jessica's presence that she felt brave enough to call Claire. Jessica left the hospital room, her heart pounding, not knowing what to expect. But here's the shocking part. The next morning, Claire showed up at the hospital, hugging her mother and crying. She thanked Jessica, saying that her mother's call was something she had been waiting for a decade. But then Claire looked at Jessica with a strange, almost fearful look, and asked, "Who are you to make my mother change like that?" Jessica didn't know how to answer. She was just a nurse, but her energy had shaken an entire family. And then the twist, Claire starts reaching out to Jessica, not just to thank her, but to confide in her own issues, from work, stress, to the fear of never being good enough. Jessica finds herself in a whirlwind of emotions, unsure whether she can continue to be a role model for both mother and child. What would you do in Jessica's shoes? Would you set boundaries, or continue to let your energy guide you? The story doesn't end there. Let's go back to Anna, a graphic designer in Brooklyn. One evening, Anna is invited to a rooftop party in Williamsburg where creatives gather for cocktails and art. She plans to stay for only an hour, but then she meets Zoe, an indie film director, stressed about a new project. Zoe, usually confident and sharp, becomes vulnerable when talking to Anna. She confesses that she's afraid her film will fail, that she's been pretending to be strong to hide her insecurities. Anna just listened, but Zoe said she felt liberated from her fear. Anna thought it was just a fleeting moment, but the following week, Zoe invited her to the set, saying she wanted Anna there to keep the energy up. Anna, not used to the spotlight, agreed, thinking she was just there to watch. But when she walked onto the set, the atmosphere changed. The actors, who had been tense about a difficult scene, became more focused, and the director of photography joked that Anna was their good luck charm. But here's the twist. After the scene was over, Zoe took Anna aside and said she'd rewritten the script, inspired by her conversation with Anna. The film was now about a character facing her fear of failure, and Zoe wanted Anna to be the emotional advisor on the project. Anna panicked. She was just a designer, not a psychologist, but her energy has inadvertently pulled her into the center of a major project. Do you think Anna should accept, or should she back out before she gets too caught up? And then there are those moments when the role throws you into almost unbelievable situations. Let's go back to David, the career coach in Chicago. One day, David gets an email from Rachel, a client who stopped consulting after realizing she was living up to her family's expectations. Rachel writes that she's quit her law firm job and started writing a book about her journey to self-discovery. But here's the shocking part. She wants David to co-author it because she believes his energy is the inspiration for the story. David, who is used to consulting in meetings, feels like he's been thrust onto a stage without a script. He agrees to meet Rachel to discuss it, but when they sit down at a coffee shop in the Loop, Rachel reveals another secret. She's kept a journal since she was a child, recording dreams her family rejected, and she believes that David, with his powers of reflection, can help her turn it into an inspirational book. But then, as they talk, Rachel becomes overly emotional, almost angry, saying that David has to help her because he started it all. David feels pressured, as if his energy is not only reflecting, but also inadvertently creating a responsibility he didn't ask for. He begins to wonder, should he set boundaries, or should he just let his energy guide him? And here's the final twist. When David gets home, he gets a call from a publisher saying that Rachel sent a sample chapter and referred to David as inspirational. Now the whole publishing world is curious about him. What would you do if you were David at a crossroads between avoiding and seizing? The story continues. Think of Lauren, a social worker in San Diego. One afternoon at a support group for teens, a girl named Mia, who was usually very quiet, stood up and told her about being abused by a family member. The atmosphere in the room became heavy, and all eyes turned to Lauren as if she could fix everything. Lauren, her calming presence, simply nodded and said, "Thank you for sharing." But after that session, Mia began to... At first, she clung to Lauren, calling late at night, texting constantly, saying that only Lauren understood her. Lauren felt both honored and stifled. She knew her energy had opened doors for Mia, but she was not a therapist, just a social worker. And then came the twist. Mia's mother, Carla, showed up at the center, furious, accusing Lauren of inciting Mia to tell lies about her family. Lauren was stunned, trying to explain that she was just listening, but Carla wouldn't listen. The situation became tense as the center considered an investigation, and Lauren feared that her job might be in jeopardy. But in that dark moment, Mia stood up at another meeting publicly, thanking Lauren for giving her the courage to speak out. The group fell silent, and Carla reluctantly agreed to take Mia to therapy. Lauren breathes a sigh of relief, but she realizes that her energy isn't just a reflection. It can inadvertently spark fights she doesn't anticipate. Do you think Lauren should continue to lead by example, or should she protect herself from such emotional storms? And then there are times when your energy makes connections that are inexplicable. Let's go back to Ethan, the Seattle bookseller. One day, while Ethan was stocking shelves, a regular customer named Sophia walked in, but this time she wasn't looking for a book. She looked at Ethan strangely and said, "I need to tell you something, and I don't know why it's you." Sophia revealed that she was an investigative journalist working on a major scandal involving a Seattle pharmaceutical company. She had been threatened, and the stress nearly drove her to the brink of collapse. But in Ethan's presence, she felt safe enough to share. Ethan, who was used to talking about books, didn't know what to do but listen. But here's the twist. A few days later, Sophia came back saying that she had published the article and that part of the reason was because Ethan had helped her get clarity. She gave him a copy of the article with the inscription, "Thank you for being my role model." But the story didn't end there. The article went viral, and suddenly Ethan was getting messages from strangers saying that they had read the article and felt connected to him, even though they had never met. Ethan was confused, wondering if his energy was spreading farther than he could control. What would you do if you were Ethan when your quiet strength suddenly became the focus of an entire community? And the story continues with a never-ending emotional spiral. Think of Natalie, the elementary school teacher in Orlando. One day during class, a student named Liam, who was usually a mischievous child, suddenly ran up to her and hugged her, crying, saying that his parents were getting a divorce. Natalie, in her gentle way, just hugs him and tells him everything will be okay. But then Liam's mother, Karen, comes to school furious, saying that Natalie has no right to interfere in their family affairs. Natalie tries to explain that she is just comforting Liam, but Karen doesn't listen and even threatens to sue the school. Natalie feels like the ground has fallen out from under her feet. But here's the twist at a parent-teacher conference. Liam stands up in front of everyone and says that Natalie is the only person who makes him feel heard. The room goes silent and Karen bursts into tears, apologizing to Natalie. Karen then starts to seek Natalie out to confide in her broken marriage, making Natalie a role model not only for Liam, but also for his mother. Imagine you are at a food fair in Austin, Texas, among the taco and barbecue burger stands, the smell of smoke mixed with the country music of a local band. You're just about to enjoy a brisket and unwind after a long week when a woman named Grace, standing behind the counter selling homemade pastries, suddenly looks at you as if she's seen a ghost. She skips past the line of customers, walks up to you and whispers, "I don't know why, but I feel like I have to tell you. I cheated on my husband and I can't live with this secret anymore." You stand there, sandwich half-eaten, completely stunned. Grace, her eyes red, tells you that she's kept this secret for 2 years, and your presence even for a few minutes makes her feel like she can't keep pretending. You just nod, trying to stay calm, but inside you're spinning. What do you say? What do you do when a stranger just dropped an emotional bomb like that on you? But this isn't the twist. Grace grabs your hand almost pleadingly and says, "I was going to confess to my husband tonight, but I need you there. I don't know why, but I feel like you're the only one who can get me through this." You panic. Go with a stranger to witness a confession that could destroy a marriage, or refuse and let Grace face it alone. What do you choose when your energy has inadvertently pushed you into a situation where there's no way out? This is the reality of an energy mirror. You don't just reflect emotions, you can become the center of them. The point of life-changing decisions. And sometimes it drags you into drama you didn't ask for. Let's go back to Emily, the Portland barista. After her conversation with Daniel, a veteran struggling with PTSD, Emily thought she had seen the peak of the dramatic moments. But then, one day, as she was wiping down the counter after rush hour, a young woman named Chloe, who frequented the shop with a notebook, walked in looking distraught. Chloe, who was usually reserved and ordered only a cappuccino, pulled Emily aside and said, "I know this sounds crazy, but I just found out I was adopted, and I think my birth mother lives in Portland. I don't know why, but I feel like you're the only one who understands." Emily, who wasn't used to such revelations, tried to keep her cool, but she felt a surge of energy, as if Chloe was looking for something deeper than a conversation. She listens as Chloe tells her story of her search for her birth mother, of her sleepless nights, and her fear of rejection. Emily nods, but Chloe says that Emily's presence gave her the courage to write a letter to her birth mother. You think that's where the story ends? No. A month later, Chloe returns to the cafe, sobbing into Emily's arms. She says that her birth mother Linda has responded, and they met for the first time in a park in Portland. But here's the twist. Linda, it turns out, is also a regular at the cafe, and she confided in Emily about the loss of her child years ago. Emily realizes that she has, albeit unintentionally, become the bridge to a family reunion. But then Linda and Chloe start showing up together, reaching out to Emily, not just to thank her, but to share the tensions in their new relationship. Emily feels trapped in a drama, unsure how to get out. What would you do if you were Emily when your energy accidentally wrote a story that the world wanted you to star in? And the story doesn't end there. Let's go back to Jessica, the nurse in Baltimore. After the incident with Margaret and her daughter Claire, Jessica thought she had gone through enough drama for a lifetime. But one night, while she was working a late shift, a new patient, Jason, was brought into the emergency room after a car accident. Jason, though severely injured, was conscious and clung to Jessica's hand, saying, "You're the only person I want to talk to." I don't know why, but I feel like you understand me. Jessica, exhausted after a 12-hour shift, tried to focus, but she sensed a strange energy coming from Jason. He told her that the accident was no accident. He had driven off the road on purpose because he couldn't handle the stress of work and an ongoing divorce. Jessica was stunned, not knowing what to do but listen. But Jason's words were like a shock, making her feel both scared and responsible. She reported the situation to the hospital's psychiatrist, but Jason insisted that he only wanted to tell Jessica. Here's the twist. After being discharged, Jason began showing up at the hospital, not for treatment, but to find Jessica, saying that she was the light that saved him. Jessica panicked, fearing that her presence had inadvertently created an unhealthy dependency. But then one day Jason showed up with a bouquet of flowers and a letter saying that he had signed up for therapy and was rebuilding his life thanks to Jessica for showing him that he was worth living. But the twist didn't end there. Jason revealed that he was a journalist, and he wanted to write an article about Jessica, calling her the silent angel of the hospital. The article was published in a major Baltimore newspaper, and suddenly Jessica was the center of attention, with dozens of patients and colleagues reaching out to her to share their stories. Jessica feels like she's caught in a whirlwind, unsure if she can continue to lead by example or find a way out. What would you do if you were Jessica when the whole city suddenly looks at you as an icon? And then the drama continues with Anna, a graphic designer in Brooklyn. After agreeing to be Zoe's emotional advisor for her film, Anna thinks she'll only need to show up a few times on set. But Zoe, with the enthusiasm of a director, begins to rely on Anna more. One day, when a major scene in the film goes wrong, because the lead actress, Sophia, can't express the necessary emotions, Zoe begs Anna to talk to her. Anna, no expert, agrees, thinking she just needs to listen. But when she sits down with Sophia in a small dressing room, Sophia bursts into tears, revealing that she struggles with anxiety and fears that the role will destroy her career. Anna, ever the calm presence, just nodded, but Sophia said she felt released from her fear. The scene that followed became the highlight of the film, and Zoe publicly thanked Anna in front of the entire crew. You think it stopped there? No. The film was selected for the Sundance Film Festival, and Zoe invited Anna joins, saying she is the soul of the project. But here's the twist at Sundance. Sophia, now a rising star, tells Anna's story in an interview, calling her the person who changed my life. The interview goes viral, and suddenly Anna is getting dozens of messages from strangers, from actors to producers, asking her to be an energy advisor for their projects. Anna, who only wanted to be a graphic designer, feels like she's being pushed into a world she doesn't belong in. She begins to wonder, is her energy taking her too far, or is this her destiny? What would you do if you were Anna, caught between keeping your feet on the ground and stepping into the spotlight? And the story doesn't end there. Let's go back to David, the Chicago career advisor. After being offered to co-author Rachel's book, David thinks he can take control of the situation. He agrees to work with Rachel, but during a meeting at a Wicker Park coffee shop, Rachel reveals another secret. Her diary is not just a collection of buried dreams, but also shocking revelations about her family, including a financial scandal that her father, a prominent businessman, has been hiding. Rachel wants the book to expose the truth, and she believes that David, with his reflective energy, is the only person who can help her write it, without letting his personal feelings get in the way. David, who is used to providing career advice, feels like he is being pushed into an ethical quagmire. If he helps Rachel, the book could ruin her family's reputation and drag him into a legal battle. But if he refuses, Rachel could collapse, since she has placed all her trust in him. Here's the twist. Just as David is about to refuse Rachel's father, Richard shows up at his office, having gotten information about the book from somewhere. Richard, with the cold exterior of a powerful businessman, warns David that if he continues to help Rachel, he will regret it. David feels his heart sink, unsure whether to stand up for the truth or protect himself. But then Rachel calls sobbing, saying she has discovered another secret her father has known about the diary all along and is trying to stop her from publishing it. David, caught between two walls, realizes that his energy is not just a reflection. It has inadvertently ignited a family war. What would you do if you were David when your energy suddenly becomes the focus of a drama bigger than Hollywood? And the drama continues for Lauren, a social worker in San Diego. After the incident with Mia and her mother, Lauren thought she had overcome her biggest challenge. But one day, while she was leading a life skills workshop for teenagers, a boy named Diego, who had just joined the group, suddenly stood up and shouted, "I can't take it anymore. I want to leave home." The room fell silent, and Diego, his eyes red with tears, told her that his stepfather had been abusing him, but his mother didn't believe him. Lauren, with her calm demeanor, took Diego aside and listened. She reported the incident to Child Protection, but Diego insisted that only Lauren could make him feel safe. Here's the twist. Diego's mother, Elena, showed up at the center, not only angry, but also with her stepfather, Victor, to confront Lauren. Victor, looking fierce, accused Lauren of making up stories to destroy their family. Lauren, though frightened, stood her ground, but she received an anonymous letter threatening her if she continued to interfere. Things get tense when Child Protection begins to investigate, and Lauren fears that her presence has inadvertently put Diego in danger. But then, at a Child Protection hearing, Diego stands up with courage. He credits to Lauren and tells the whole truth in court. His stepfather is arrested, and Diego is placed in a safe foster home. Elena, though initially angry, eventually apologizes to Lauren, saying she saved her son. But Lauren can't help but tremble at the thought that her energy, despite saving one person, has drawn her into a war she was never prepared for. What would you do if you were Lauren when your role as a mirror of energy suddenly turns you into an unlikely hero but also a target of hostility? And the story doesn't end there. Let's go back to Ethan, the Seattle bookseller. After Sophia's article, Ethan thought the attention would die down. But one day, as he was closing up shop, a man named Robert, wearing an expensive suit, walked in and said, "I need to talk to you. I'm the lawyer for the pharmaceutical company that Sophia exposed." Ethan, who was not used to such situations, felt his heart pounding. Robert said that the article had caused millions of dollars in damage and that the company was investigating everyone involved, including Ethan, because Sophia had mentioned him in interviews. Robert did not directly threaten, but his tone was cold, implying that Ethan should keep quiet if asked. Ethan is in a panic, wondering how his mere presence through a conversation with Sophia has landed him at the center of a major lawsuit. But here's the twist. Sophia calls Ethan, saying she's being sued for defamation by a pharmaceutical company and she needs Ethan as a witness, since he was the one who helped her find the courage to publish her article. Ethan, who just wants to live a quiet life, filled with books, feels like he's being thrust into a thriller. He starts getting anonymous calls, and one day he finds a note under his door that says, "Please stop." Ethan, though terrified, realizes that his energy isn't just a projection, it's inadvertently fueling a war against power. What would you do if you were Ethan when your energy suddenly makes you part of a conspiracy bigger than you could ever imagine? And the drama continues for Natalie, an elementary school teacher in Orlando. After the incident with Liam, Natalie thought she had learned to balance her role as a mirror. But one day at a parent-teacher conference, a new mother named Vanessa suddenly stood up and criticized Natalie in front of everyone, saying that she was making her son Noah act strange. Vanessa said that Noah, who had always been a happy boy, was now constantly asking about the meaning of life after being in Natalie's class. Natalie tried to explain that she was just encouraging her students to think deeply, but Vanessa wouldn't listen, even posting a post on the parents' Facebook group accusing Natalie of brainwashing her students. The post went viral, and Natalie received angry messages from other parents. She felt like the world was against her, even though she was just doing her job. But here's the twist. Noah, during a class, stood up and defended Natalie in front of the whole class, saying that she was the only teacher who made him feel able to be himself. Noah's words were recorded by another student and posted online, and the video quickly went viral with thousands of people sharing and calling Natalie an inspirational teacher. But the drama continued. Vanessa, despite her apology, revealed that she was struggling with depression after losing her job, and she had projected her pain onto Natalie. Vanessa began to confide in Natalie, turning her into a role model not only for Noah, but also for his mother. Imagine you're at a Miami night market, neon lights illuminating stalls, selling Cuban food and handmade jewelry, salsa music blasting from a corner. You're just about to grab a mojito and enjoy the lively atmosphere when a man named Marcus, standing behind the empanada stand, suddenly looks at you as if he's just realized a long-held secret. He calls you over, ignoring the waiting customers, and says in a trembling voice, "I don't know who you are, but I feel like I have to tell you this. I abandoned my brother 10 years ago after a fight, and I think he lives in Miami." You stand there, your cold mojito in your hand, completely confused. Marcus says he's never told anyone about his brother because the guilt is too great, but your presence makes it impossible for him to keep running away. You just nod, trying to find words of comfort, but inside, you're in turmoil. How could a stranger put a family secret in your hands? But this isn't the twist. Marcus, his eyes red, says he's found a Facebook post that might be from his brother, and he wants you to come with him to a bar in South Beach where his brother might work to confront him. "I can't do this alone," he pleads. "I need your energy." You panic. Go with a stranger to reconcile a broken relationship, or refuse and let Marcus deal with his own pain. This is the kind of drama that energy mirrors often get caught up in, and you have to decide on the spot. What do you do when your energy becomes the catalyst for a reunion that could change a family? Moments like this remind you that being an energy mirror is about more than just mirroring emotions. Sometimes you become the one to open new chapters in someone else's life, whether you want to or not. Let's go back to Emily the barista in Portland. After her story with Chloe and her reunion with her birth mother, Emily thought she had seen enough life-changing moments. But one afternoon, as she was reorganizing the pastry counter, a woman named Abigail, a regular customer who often ordered her artisan lattes, walked in with a nervous look on her face. Abigail, usually cheerful and chatty, suddenly pulled Emily aside and said, "I need to tell someone, and I don't know why it's you. I just found out my husband has a child with another woman, and I don't know what to do." Emily, accustomed to sudden confessions, tried to stay calm, but she felt a strong energy coming from Abigail, as if she was being a big turning point. Emily listens as Abigail talks about her shock and pain, about how she wanted to confront her husband, but was afraid of breaking up the family. Emily just nods, but Abigail says that Emily's presence made her feel brave enough to ask her husband. You think the story ends there? No. A week later, Abigail returns to the bar, but this time she's not alone. Her husband, Paul, is with her. Paul, looking remorseful, thanks Emily for helping his wife face the truth. He confesses that the child is from a premarital relationship and he hid it from Abigail because he was afraid of losing her. But here's the twist. Abigail reveals that she's been in contact with the child's mother, a woman named Tara, and Tara wants to meet Emily to thank her for initiating the conversation. Emily is stunned. She's just a barista, but her energy has inadvertently drawn a web of strangers into a complicated story. But the drama continues. Tara, upon meeting Emily, bursts into tears and says she's always wanted her child to know her father, but hasn't dared to contact Paul. Now she wants Emily to be present for the child's first meeting with Paul. Emily feels caught up in a tearful family drama, unsure whether she can continue to set an example or find a way to back out. What would you do if you were Emily when your energy suddenly becomes the center of a story that the world wants you to continue starring in? And the story continues. Let's go back to Jessica the nurse in Baltimore. After the incident with Jason and the article that made her a silent angel, Jessica thought she could control the attention. But one day, as she was walking home from her shift, a woman named Diane, looking tired and red-eyed, stopped her on the street. Diane said she had read the article about Jessica and felt pulled to her. "I know this sounds crazy," Diane whispered, "but I need to tell someone. I was a witness to a murder, and I lied to the police to protect a friend." Jessica, already exhausted, felt her heart sink. A murder? She was just a nurse, not a detective, but she felt a strong energy coming from Diane, as if she were begging for release. Jessica listened as Diane told her about how she had witnessed a violent incident in her neighborhood, but out of fear she had lied to protect a friend she believed was innocent. Diane said that Jessica's presence made her feel brave enough to tell the truth, but she was afraid of the consequences. Jessica, distraught, advised Diane to contact a lawyer, but she couldn't stop thinking about the responsibility she had unwittingly taken on. Here's the twist. A few days later, Diane returned saying that she had met with the police and revealed the truth, leading to the dismantling of a major crime ring in Baltimore. She thanked Jessica, saying that she was the fire that had helped her find herself. But the drama wasn't over. An article about Diane mentioned Jessica as an inspiration, and suddenly she was invited to appear on a national talk show to tell her story. Jessica, who had wanted to work quietly, felt like the whole world was watching her. But then another twist: a detective contacted her, saying that Diane's testimony had prompted a suspect to retaliate, and they needed Jessica as a witness to protect Diane. Jessica felt like she was being thrust into a crime drama, unsure whether she could continue to set an example or run away from the spotlight. What would you do if you were Jessica when your energy suddenly pulled you into the center of a case bigger than you could have imagined? And the drama continues for Anna, a graphic designer in Brooklyn. After the Sundance incident, Anna thought she could return to her quiet life, focusing on her design work. But one day, while she was working at a coffee shop in Williamsburg, a film producer named Greg walked in and said he had seen Sophia's interview online. Greg, with his confident demeanor and professional smile, offered Anna a job as an energy consultant on an upcoming Hollywood blockbuster with a multi-million-dollar budget. Anna, unfamiliar with the glitz and glamour of the film world, laughed it off, thinking it was a joke. But Greg was serious. He said that Anna's energy, as Sophia described it, could help the crew overcome the stress on set. Anna agrees to meet Greg to discuss the project, but she is unprepared for the twist. Greg reveals that the project is more than just a movie. It is based on a true story about a political scandal, and the crew is under pressure from forces that want to stop production. Greg believes that Anna, with her mirroring abilities, can help keep the actors and director in check. Anna, though intrigued, is horrified when Greg tells her that she may need to sign a confidentiality agreement and even be monitored because of the sensitivity of the project. But the drama continues. Sophia, the star of the previous film, calls Anna, begging her to join, saying that she is being Anna, is having a mental breakdown due to the pressure of her new role, and only Anna can help her overcome it. Anna feels like she is being dragged into a Hollywood quagmire where her energy is not only reflected, but also weaponized in a power play. But then, another twist, a Variety article reveals that Anna is being considered for the project, and she receives dozens of emails from other filmmakers, making her an industry phenomenon. Anna, who only wants to draw logos and posters, wonders whether she should take the chance or run away from the spotlight. What would you do if you were Anna when your energy suddenly turns you into an unwilling star in the film world? And the story doesn't end there. Let's go back to David, the Chicago career counselor. After a confrontation with Rachel's father, David, thinks he can back out of the book project. But Rachel, with burning determination, shows up at his office carrying a suitcase full of documents, letters, contracts, and notes that prove her father was involved in a massive money laundering scheme. Rachel says she doesn't just want to write an autobiography, she wants to uncover the truth and free herself and those her father has harmed. David, who is used to career counseling, feels like he's being thrust into a spy movie. He tries to convince Rachel to find an investigative journalist, but she insists that only David, with his reflective energy, can keep her sane enough to finish the book. Here's the twist. Just as David agrees to review the documents, he receives a call from an unknown number with a deep voice warning, "Don't mess with Richard, or you'll lose everything." David panics, realizing that he's dealing with more than just family drama. He's caught up in a web of crime. But the drama continues. Rachel reveals that she has sent a copy of the document to a lawyer who wants to meet with David to discuss testifying in a lawsuit against Richard. David feels like his world is falling apart, wondering if he should continue to set an example or find a way out before it's too late. But then, another twist, a journalist from the Chicago Tribune contacts David saying they have received leaked information about the scandal and they want to interview him as an inspiration for Rachel. David, caught between truth and danger, wonders if his energy is worth sacrificing everything. What would you do if you were David when your energy suddenly drags you into a risky legal battle? And the drama continues for Lauren, a social worker in San Diego. After the incident with Diego, Lauren thought she had learned how to manage her role as an energy mirror. But one day, while she was leading a community workshop on mental health, a new woman named Carmen suddenly stood up and shouted, "I can't pretend anymore, I've been living a lie." The room fell silent, and Carmen, her eyes filled with tears, revealed that she had been impersonating someone else for 10 years, fleeing a scam she had once participated in Los Angeles. Lauren, calm as ever, took Carmen aside and listened. She advised Carmen to chemical testing, Vanessa to expose illegal vaccines, Daniel to expose data leaks, Clara to manipulate elections, and Elias to expose biological testing. Every time Ethan listens, he inadvertently sparks a fight for justice, but he also faces strangers blocking his way, warnings to keep quiet, and pressure from international organizations that want him to be a symbol. Ethan, who only wants to sell books, has learned to embrace his mission, but not without days when he wonders if he can continue to stand in the spotlight. These stories, from Portland to Baltimore, from Brooklyn to San Diego, from small coffee shops to big stages, have one thing in common. The power of the mirror is not what you do, but what you are. As Carl Jung once said, everything that makes us uncomfortable in others can lead us to know ourselves. You, by being present, become a mirror that reflects the light and darkness of others, from the deep pain of Hannah Abigail or Julian to the dark secrets of Diane Rachel or Zoe. But this role is not easy. It requires you to stand firm amid emotional storms, amid praise and threats, amid the spotlight and the darkness of loneliness. It requires you to learn to reflect without absorbing, to listen without carrying, and to shine without burning yourself out. So what's the lesson here? If you recognize yourself in the stories of Emily, Jessica, Anna, David, Lauren, or Ethan, if you've ever felt your presence make a difference in others, even when you've done nothing special, then you are an energy mirror. And your mission is not to please everyone, not to fix the world, but to live in your own frequency with authenticity and love. Embrace your quiet power, but protect it. Set boundaries when you need to meditate to keep your energy balanced, and find people who understand you, like the Friends in Environmental Health or arts organizations who reached out to our characters. Remember that every time you reflect, you're not just helping others see themselves, you're also seeing yourself growing, becoming a stronger version of yourself. Now I want to hear from you. Have you had moments where your presence changed someone else? Has someone confided in you a shocking secret like Tom Harper or Caleb? Has anyone thanked you for helping them face the truth like Chloe Mia or Elias? Share your stories in the comments. I read them all, and yours could inspire thousands of people watching this video. If you found this video to be touching, please share with a friend who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more heartwarming stories about the human spirit. Finally, remember, you don't have to shout to be heard or take big action to make a difference. Just being yourself with your authentic energy is the example, the light, the change the world is waiting for. Thank you for being with us, and keep shining.